All right, welcome to Witchpolice Radio. One of the good things I like to do on this show, obviously, is talk to new artists that are new to me. But I also like kind of catching up with people who've been on the show before and who are doing something interesting and new. And I think that the guest on this episode, you've been on a couple times now. Once on a live show, once on just a regular interview podcast. I think maybe more.
Yeah, no,
but
I think that's it.
does that sound right? Yeah, yeah. But you have a lot of new stuff going on, and I've been kind of thinking about sort of this is kind of the year. It seems to me anyway. This is the year that the rest of the world sort of discovered Nic Dyson. I mean, you've always been sort of well known within Winnipeg, especially within like the punk scene and stuff. You were kind of the one acoustic sort of folk singer guy who fit the bill with all these punk bands and hardcore bands and things. And now, due to a lot of reasons, you're sort of blowing up, and your music is getting out there to a much wider audience than I think has ever listened to you before, which is awesome. But
Yeah, thanks.
I do want to get into all that, and I wanted to talk about your new record. But before we do that, if you want to just maybe introduce yourself and give a bit of background about what it is that you do for people who might not be familiar with your music.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Nic Dyson. I've been playing shows around Winnipeg and recording music for about 10 years. And I've just released a brand new EP last Friday. And yeah, I'm going strong, trying out new sonic directions and really trying to explore my own sound beyond just a folk singer-songwriter.
Yeah. Well, and like I said too, you obviously have that kind of punk background in that,
Yeah,
everyone in punk bands from a certain age range seems to have played with you in some context, whether it's you opening for them or you filling in on an instrument for somebody or whatever. So you have that going for you,
yeah,
and you also have this kind of very strong catalog of really, I think you called it acoustic sad music before, and it's
mhm,
very kind of heartfelt, personal acoustic music. And so, I
yeah.
mean, what has happened in the last little while that has sort of made that go beyond your initial audience? And because you've really blown up, and there's a lot of reasons for that.
Uh, well, yeah. I wouldn't say really blown up. I've definitely got found some pockets of people who listen to me in different parts of the world now, and that's largely because of this random, most uh, un what's the word I'm looking for? I could not have possibly seen this coming, but I
Yeah.
got a message from uh, the one and only Jake Tapper from CNN out of nowhere from a Facebook burner account. So at first I thought it was just some random, uh, but it turns out it is in fact him. And he told me that he found my dad's obituary
Okay.
through looking looking at his family history through ancestry.com, and lo and behold, we are related.
That's
um
super random. That's incredibly random. Yeah.
Unbelievably random. And honestly, I if you put my dad and him side by side, you can actually see some similarities. And
Wow.
I don't know if that's the family coming through or if it's just because I want there to be similarities. I'm not sure, but it's apparently true. And ever since, he has supported my music and always been there to retweet or do whatever he can, really within reason, of course. But
Yeah.
what I couldn't believe is just how selfless he was with his platform and his time uh, to to help me out in that way. It's such an amazing thing that in all honesty is pretty easy for him, right? I mean, he's got a platform. All he really has to do is click a button.
Sure.
And but so many people would never do that. And
Especially someone
so
at that fame level. Yeah, for sure.
exactly. And so the fact that he was just so open and so ready, so willing. Uh, I know on the day that he retweeted my music and like the news broke,
Yeah.
I know that he basically said, "I am at your service. Like anything you need from me, I'll do."
Wow.
And he did so many interviews with like CBC and CTV, and we did a couple together. And then I was on CNN. It was a crazy few days, to say the very least. and now he's just kind of my cousin.
That's
You
cool.
know, like we're in touch, and I don't know if we'll ever meet. I hope we do, but we're still in touch, and he's still down to help me in whatever way he can.
Well, I think the coolest thing about that, watching that sort of play out in the media and on social media and everything, is that he seems like he genuinely is a fan of your stuff. It's not just, oh, this is my distant
Yeah.
cousin who plays music. Like he seems to really, really dig what you're doing.
Well, yeah, and I think that honesty comes through, and I think and hope that he can see that, and I know that he's quite the dad. I know that he likes a lot of dad music. One
Yeah,
of his favorites is Dave Matthews. I love Dave Matthews. Um, so I think it's kind of in his wheelhouse. Whether he's used to that level of honesty, I'm not really sure, but he appreciates it either way.
yeah.
And yeah, that's just an incredible feeling, incredible weird coincidence, and yeah.
It's really cool that it's opened you up to a new audience too. Like all these people following him, even if he just does one retweet of a new song you have or something, I'm sure you get all kinds of downloads and listens and
Oh
streams
man,
from everywhere, right?
the day that it was before any of the new songs came out. It was like a couple of weeks early, so all I had on streaming was my album Figment,
Yeah,
and that album just blew up. I think I got 20,000 streams in like a week or something like that. It was constant too. um, and yeah, I found pockets of people that are still, following me and listening to me now, and are in contact with me all around the world.
that's great.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's really amazing.
Well, how do you? I mean, again, like you said at the beginning, you haven't blown up that much, but your profile is rising, which is great to see.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
how do you? I mean, as someone who records such personal music and such honest music, like you said, how do you maintain that? It just seems to me like your records from the first one on to where you are now, there's a rawness to them. But even when it gets polished, and even when like your newer one probably is the best sounding record you've done, I think technically
Yeah,
and everything like that. But it still has that rawness to it and that kind of personal element to it. How do you maintain that? Despite you're not maybe you're not in the basement anymore, just recording into a mic on a computer or something, but that still remains that kind of like intimacy, I guess, of your songs.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, I don't write unless I have to.
Okay,
In that, like I write as a form of therapy to like process really, really complex emotions, feelings, or situations that I might be in. Uh, and so the songs that I'm bringing to, oh, and the other thing that I have to mention is, yes, I have all these bells and whistles now in the production of the studio version, but
yeah,
the songs themselves all started with me uh, on the foot of my bed playing my acoustic guitar. So no matter what, the integrity and the rawness and the simplicity of the song is always there to
right,
start with,
right,
and then we build on it from there. Um, and thankfully, I was able to find a guy in Roman Clark that could maintain that honesty and even bring out more of an urgency in that honesty.
okay,
I think that he was able to really draw out more of the emotion even than I ever could with the production that he brought. So yeah, I think I, I I wouldn't be recording the songs if they didn't feel the way that they always feel, which is, I don't know. That's a it's a weird feeling that you get when you write something that you know is exactly what you want to say. It's just like this full circle cathartic moment where you're like, okay, this is what I've been working towards. This is the song that I want. And those are the songs that eventually get heard.
yeah. Well, and that's those are the songs that connect, right? If you have that
Of
rawness
course.
to it, for sure. Yeah, yeah. Is
Yeah.
it? I mean, how many songs do you start and then scrap? Like, because you said that you only write when you have to. Like, how many of
Yeah,
these songs are just kind of, are they fully formed? How much time and reworking and everything do you have to? Because it's all about emotion, right? I mean, obviously there's
yeah.
musical chops in there too, and the chords and the melodies and all that. But I mean, the emotion I think is the driving force behind your stuff. So how long does it typically take you to get a song from sitting on the foot of your bed to, okay, this is ready to record?
Oh man, great question. When I first started writing, I was catching up with myself per se, and I wrote a lot.
Yeah.
I probably wrote 20 songs in a summer, which is a lot for me. I don't think that's a lot for some people, but that's a lot for me. And uh, since then, it's just kind of gotten smaller and smaller to the point where sometimes I won't write a song that I feel that feeling with um, for months.
Okay.
And after a while, I'll begin to think that it's the last song I'm ever going to write, or I've forgotten how to write a song and it's never going to happen again, or I'm never going to capture the magic of my last song.
Yeah.
That feeling, because I'm always chasing that feeling that I get when I've created something, uh, created something meaningful to me. So uh, it could take forever, but an example being on my latest EP, TV Crimes, I I wrote that while we were just starting recording
Okay.
uh, Use You, I think, which is the first one we did together. And it was such a stream of conscious, like meaningful song that I wrote. I took it to Roman and I said, okay, we weren't planning on doing this one, but like you got to hear this, and I think we got to do it. And we did. Uh, but I had only written it like a few days before, hadn't figured out all the melodies yet,
Yeah.
hadn't figured it was still very, very new and raw, but we came together and we um, fine-tuned it together, and what you hear is what we came out with.
Cool.
So
Is
it's
it?
all over the map, but most of the time it takes a long time
I
for me to
imagine.
write a
Yeah.
song.
I can see that. It does seem like they're very. I don't mean this in a bad way either. They're worked over. Like they. It seems like you're, especially with the lyrics. It seems like you're very precise in what you're trying
Yeah,
to put across and how it's
and
perceived.
I will say, yeah, you are right. And but what I will say is sometimes, like it's been like 6 months or however long, but I'll get inspiration from somewhere and I can write a song in 10 minutes
Yeah.
and all the lyrics could be there. Or I'll have a verse that's been just floating around in my head forever. And then finally I find a place for it and the rest of the song just pours out.
Yeah. For
It,
sure.
it it's different every time, which is I think another reason why I think I always forget, because I don't have a set way that I always do it. I always do it differently. And so I think that I kind of shoot myself in the foot that way because I never know which way it's going to happen.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Has this shitty period that everyone's dealt with the pandemic, has it
Mm.
helped or hindered you as far as writing songs? Like, have you been productive
Oh man.
as a writer during this time?
Well, yeah. So I had an album that I had just finished, which is Figments,
Right.
and I released that at the very start of the pandemic. Like I think everyone will admit it started March of 2020. I
Yeah, that
released it
sounds
in
about right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I released it in about April. Because looking at the state of the world at that time and all the uncertainty, I was like, there's no point in me holding on to this. There's no point in me like holding out for shows to return.
Yeah.
So I might as well just drop it on the internet. And so I did. Um, but after that, because I just dropped it on the internet, I was kind of just already thinking of the next thing. And yeah, when the pandemic hit, I didn't have anywhere to work, um, didn't have anywhere to go,
Yeah.
and luckily, my friend has his own studio and his little shed right beside his house. And when it was safe, when when restrictions told us that we could, we got together and recorded. And it's honestly one of the only things that got me out of the house. It was one
Yeah.
of the only things that I did during that time that I could actually be proud of, because it was very hard for me. The
Yeah.
pandemic, it was very hard on me, with no work and just moving out, and yeah, it was really tough.
What was it like releasing music during the pandemic? I know, I mean, obviously it's been difficult for a lot of people, not just,
Yeah,
doing anything, working, finding, not having jobs, not having anything to do, not being able to get out of the house. But you're releasing music, and you've done it twice now, right?
yeah, yeah.
And the typical way you would do this is it's out the window. You can't play a release party, you can't tour, you can't really any of the things that you normally would do to kind of get the word out and get a response from listeners too. That's all changed now during this time. So what was that experience like? Was it hard to sort of gauge how your records were doing out there because you weren't seeing people face to face and that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. uh yeah, that's a great question and a great statement. It was it was really hard because I had such big plans for these songs, because
Yeah.
there was such a huge step forward sonically, and I really wanted to come out with a bang, because I thought these songs were really, really special. um and so I had all these plans for these music videos, and I was starting to get props together and all this stuff, and it just got way too hard to deal with COVID, and we basically pulled the plug on the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I basically completely redid my entire release plan, um, that I had, and basically went to basics, um, and leaned really heavy on social media. I mean, because
Mhm.
that's all you can really do. That's
There's nothing
uh,
else. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly, during that time, that was all you really had. And so, yeah, thank God for Jake Tapper, giving me that boost. Honestly, otherwise, yeah, I would really hope that I could tour with these songs someday soon. I really want to, and I really hope that I can. It's just, yeah, it's so hard to do right now.
Well, everything's up in the air. You don't know. It seems like things are getting better, but a week from now
Slowly
things
but
could
surely.
just go down the toilet again, right? It's so vague at this point.
Exactly. And it has been for so long, so I've just learned to not keep my hopes up,
Yeah.
and just do my own thing and hope for the best.
Well, in an ideal situation, what would you be doing right now? Would you be touring? Like, would you put a band together to tour this, or would you?
Oh, for sure.
I feel like this is kind of a record that you'd want to make that big, full band push, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, this is the time. With Figments too. Figments was my first full band,
Yeah.
full record.
Yeah.
And so there's 10 full band songs there, and then now you have these new ones, on Brain Fog. Yeah, absolutely, I want to get a band together, but again, that is also very difficult to do right now. And the people that I want to play in my band are the ones that actually recorded the parts that
Yeah.
you hear. And that also includes my producer, and they've got their own schedules. And uh, yeah, it's really hard to be in a band. um, and to make it work, and to make it seamless, and make it sound good.
Yeah.
I really want to put the work in, but I don't know how long it's going to take before I'm in a place where I can do that.
Is
But I'm
there?
holding out for it. I'm holding out for it big time.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that for sure. Do you think is there any danger of these songs getting to be too old news for you? Like, are you going to be? I'm sure you have lots of ideas for even the follow up to this one that just came out, right? Do you like what if we have another year before? Hopefully not, but before touring can happen and stuff like that. I mean, will you have moved on to the next thing, and then these two records will have gone sort of unplayed live?
Maybe. I do actually have plans for the next project, uh, but I don't think they'll be old news, because This is the first release where the songs on it were actually like presently how I was feeling.
Okay.
Usually you write for a couple of years and then you record, and so some of the songs that you might be recording end up being a couple of years old.
Yeah.
There was only one song on this EP that was actually considered to me an old song, which was Just Like You, because it was a B-side to Figments.
Okay.
But the other ones were written like fairly soon after I recorded them, fairly soon before I recorded them.
Right.
Sorry. And so they are still very new to me, and the things that I wrote about and the things that I put into those songs are still very new, still very fresh.
Yeah.
In my emotions. So yeah, I could definitely keep playing these songs for a while. And that's the other thing that I try to bring to my songs is this a song that I could see myself playing for the next couple of years? Like, is this a song that I could put on my set list and be proud of it?
What determines that? How do you decide if something is going to have that longevity?
It's that feeling.
Yeah.
It's that feeling that you get. And yeah, it's untangible. Like I can't, it's intangible. I can't figure it out. I've tried to figure out how to explain it. But it's just that internal gratification of finishing something that you know is exactly what you want to say. It's like a snapshot. Yeah. A snapshot of your life, or a snapshot of this complex feeling that you're feeling. I could go track by track and talk about exactly what each song is about. I'm not going to do that.
Right.
But yeah, it's still very fresh. So I could be playing these songs for a long time, and I'll be proud of them for a very long time too.
Cool. Well, that's good. I mean, I should hope so.
Yeah.
I should hope that you're proud of what you just released for sure. Does that, like you just said, I'm not going to ask you to go track by track, but the fact that you can, how much do you think that, maybe not the specific, personal stuff you're talking about, but the general feelings, how much of that do you think comes through in the songs? Like, do you think if you had a list of subject matter, do you think people could easily sort of place that to the song and figure out which one represented that thought you had or that feeling you had? Like, is it obvious to you what these songs are about, and do you think the listeners can at least get a glimpse as to what that is, or is it more sort of nebulous and vague?
There are a few things that I very purposely keep vague.
Yeah.
And then there's some things that I am very, very, very open about. Just because I think it's more damaging to me if I keep them quiet. So
right.
For example, like Great Big Dark and Use You specifically are about my dad's passing. Okay. And I've been very open about that, and on social media and everything. Yeah. But a song like TV Crimes, it's a little bit more ambiguous, and I'd like to keep it that way. So yeah, people can pretty easily connect one to the other on a couple of them, but right. I definitely keep the right cards close to my chest for sure.
Cool. And I guess even on those songs where it's not so, completely obvious what it's about, the feeling's still there, right? I mean, that's kind of the through line with all your stuff, is that the emotion's there. Whatever it is you're singing about, people are going to connect to that aspect of it.
100%. Yeah. Well, that's the hope anyway.
Yeah. Right. Of course. Yeah. And you mentioned, social media being a big deal, obviously, during the pandemic for everyone, right? I mean, especially people doing creative work. You're really active on there, which obviously has helped in getting the word out about your new music and things like that. But I also appreciate that you're very kind of honest about your opinions on things on social media. Like if someone is doing something shitty, you are very much the first person to call them out and to sort of point that kind of thing out. And so, I mean, a lot of people will have like a Twitter account or whatever, and they'll just keep it to their musician stuff or their artist stuff. It'll be like, hey, I have a record coming out, or I'm playing a show next week. And then that's it, right? But yours kind of blurs the line between personal causes that you support, personal things that you don't support, and then hey, there's a new record out. Here's about my music. So what is this sort of like, I guess, the give and take on that, of being an artist that people know from your work, and then also expressing yourself as Nic the person on there?
Another fantastic question.
Thanks.
That's a tough one. That's a loaded question. Um, there are just some things that you don't keep quiet about, you know?
Yeah.
There's just some things that I'll read, or that I'll see, that I just know isn't right, or and I just have to say something. I don't know how I really got this platform. Well, I guess I do, but I the way that this, like, I built a platform was just speaking out on things that I cared about.
Yeah.
And I wasn't thinking like, oh, I'm going to build a platform so that, what am I trying to say? I recognize the power of a platform,
Mm-hmm.
and I recognize how important it is for people with a platform to speak out on things, because in the social media world, it's the ones with that platform that are going to be seen, and unfortunately everybody else gets lost
Sure.
in the noise, right? And so I recognize it, and I take it upon myself, to my own detriment sometimes. It's gotten me in trouble once in a while, but I'm living and learning, right? I'm just a person, and speaking out on things that I might not have all the info on, or that I'm not completely educated in.
Yeah.
I mean, that happens, but I'm an emotional person, and I like to speak out where I can,
Yeah.
because there's just a lot of there's a lot of bad people in this world that don't deserve what they've got.
Yeah.
In my opinion, and there's a lot of good people that don't have what they deserve. Yeah, and I do my best.
Yeah.
That's a really hard question.
Well, I guess the upside of it too is that, like we talked about before, your ability to be very emotionally open and honest with your listeners to your music, that is very complementary to your ability to express your values and your beliefs and your kind of positions on social issues and things like that on social
Yeah,
media.
I think it helps listeners connect to me as an artist, for sure. Maybe makes them feel a little bit more safe
Yeah.
listening to my music, because there's a lot of scummy rock stars out there, and
Yes, there are. Yeah. Yeah.
there's a lot of scummy, like, artists out there, that are doing music for all the wrong reasons. And when you invest yourself in music, especially in music as emotional as mine, at least for me, if an artist is found out to be some, I'm using the word scum today, so
Yeah. That's a
scumbag.
good word.
Yeah, if he turns out to be some scumbag, I don't particularly want to listen to them anymore.
Sure. Sure.
And I've done that with a lot of artists, and I don't want to be one of those artists. I want to be exactly the opposite. And so, yeah, I want to show people who I am so that they can feel safe putting their emotions and themselves into my songs. And I do recognize that my opinions are my opinions, and there's
Mm-hmm.
always going to be people that are going to disagree, or think that I'm out of line. But I can't please everybody, right? And not everyone's going to like what they hear when they listen to me.
Right.
Um, yeah, it's just kind of like a courtesy to say, like, hey, I'm a real person. This is what I'm all about. And I support you, and I believe
Yeah.
you, and kind of like, yeah. does that answer
It
your
does. It
question?
does. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, I definitely mean it in a complimentary way. Like I like reading your social media because
thanks,
you are
thanks.
outspoken on it and because you do sort of say what you mean when it comes to serious stuff like that, for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah. I I kind of fell into that role at the beginning of the pandemic. I guess because I didn't have anything else to do and I was leaning on social media so hard. I just found myself having a platform, especially on Twitter.
Yeah.
It just kind of took off because I kept speaking out on things and people were listening and taking my words for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm grateful for it, and I don't take it for granted. That's for sure.
With the new record, where can people find it right now? Because like as we've discussed, the pandemic is still sort of happening. It's sort of
Yeah.
not, but sort of is, and the future is kind of unknown at this point. So, what's the best way for someone to track it down and actually check out your new music?
Uh, any streaming service you could possibly think of, YouTube, Bandcamp.
Yeah.
I don't have any physicals at the moment. I wish I did. I was very close to pulling the trigger on vinyl,
That would
but
have been cool.
I know, but I chickened out because it's so expensive, and
It really is.
also
Yeah.
there seems to be like a vinyl shortage around the world, and like every single vinyl production is being delayed and the
For
prices are being
years, right?
driven up. Yeah, it's just getting worse and worse. So I decided to step back. I didn't want to didn't want to have to deal with it all, but maybe for like an anniversary, maybe I'll
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that would be cool. But I mean, yeah, you're right though. I mean, I've seen like labels post things that something they want to release is now backed up 6 months because
Yeah.
whatever plant is. Yeah, so it makes sense, especially when you're trying to get it out now, and you want people to hear it at the
Totally.
time it's released. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The good thing about this being a podcast is someone might hear it the day it comes out, or they might hear it a year after that, and then hopefully, if they hear it then, things have changed a little bit, and maybe more shows are happening, tours are happening more, and things
Yeah.
have kind of eased up a bit. So, what's the best sort of place to find out what you're up to as far as potential future shows or things like that? Where should someone follow you or find you online?
Uh Definitely Twitter at Nic Dyson Music,
Okay.
NIC. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, the big three.
Right, right.
Yeah, I'll be on there. All at the same handle too, Nic Dyson Music.
Cool.
Yeah.